Well, welcome back. I'm Brad Edwards, and there he is, folks, our new Speaker of the House, Mike Johnson. After 3 weeks, several rounds, a lot of limbo, it is now time to govern. Joining me now in the studio is our friend Pat Brady, former head of the Illinois GOP, and a good friend of ours. Pat, thanks for coming on.
Good to see you, buddy. How's it going?
It's going good. Questions are for you. So this kerfuffle really started over, in part, Republicans saying no more funding for Ukraine. That's what I want to get to off the top. Okay. The stance nearly shut down the government, this Republican thought of no more funding for Ukraine. Speaker Johnson was amongst that group. Former Joint Chief of Staff recently said in an interview, we don't fund Ukraine. We lose Ukraine to Russia, we could double, triple our military budget in years to come. Funding Ukraine seems to be pretty common sense, but hardline Republicans saying no. So does this mean, Speaker Johnson mean, that funding for Ukraine is now in limbo?
No, I think he did take that position before he became Speaker, but last night he did an interview on another channel and pretty much walked back a lot of the hardline far-right positions he had taken in the past. And he said his issue, it's not so much the funding for Ukraine, is he wants two separate spending bills on it, which to me makes some sense. We need to have some accountability to where that money's going. But first and foremost, we need to support Ukraine, and there's overwhelming support in both chambers of the Congress. So I think he's walked that back. I think they'll get it done, but there is going to be a debate about it. And that's not unnecessarily unhealthy, but I agree with the Admiral, the General. You decided that we need to be involved in Ukraine and we need to help them out.
Okay, and some will see it as a relief of kind of walking back some of that earlier rhetoric. Speaker Johnson also, Pat, has had some pretty controversial social positions, and I'm not just talking about actually denying the 2020 election results. Can you expound on that?
Yeah, he was part of a group down in Louisiana before he was elected that took some very far-right social issue positions on abortion, on gay marriage, and some things, some really kind of nasty things that he supported. Now, he's walked all that back, but you could anticipate that the Democrats are going to use that, as a talking point through the next election cycle. And the reason it really can hurt Republicans to have somebody in a leadership role like that has taken those kind of positions. His job, first and foremost, is to raise money for his members and get them reelected or get more Republicans elected. It's tough to raise money on a national level when you've got that kind of baggage. Now, he's walked a lot of it back already, but that's going to be problematic. I think he knows that. But hopefully, the problem for Republicans is when we are discussing social issues as a party, we tend to not do well at the polls because a lot of what people like Johnson and some others of the hard-lying far-right social conservatives believe is not in lockstep with what the voters want. So, and if it's an issue, it's a problem for Republicans, but I'm hoping they'll get back to the spending bills and focusing on things that help Americans and not so much talk about social issues.
Yeah, you stole my last question there, but I mean, we often talk about politicians waffling. I mean, you make it sound like this gentleman may actually be a waffle.
Yeah, he is. There's no doubt about it. But just from my perspective, from a Republican strategy perspective, I'm glad he's walking it back. Right. Because if he were to stay there, kiss that one goodbye. It'll be Democrats controlling the House. But I guess the bigger point too, Brad, just to finish the social issue point, clearly abortion is going to be an issue in this election, and it always is an issue, but it just depends on how intense it is. It's going to be intensely debated in this election.
And again, let's talk about fundraising, because I mean, one of the huge roles of the Speaker of the House is to maintain the speakership, to maintain control of the House. Former Speaker Pelosi, like her or not, could raise gads of money. McCarthy, the ousted speaker, was a big fundraiser. That is a big part of the job, is making sure you maintain control of Congress. Can this little-known congressman from Louisiana, with some waffly issues in his background, I mean, can he back up the money truck, or is this trouble? And he was his party's, fourth choice to be it?
Yeah, and here, the reality is the Democrats were thrilled to get rid of Kevin McCarthy, not because they disagree with his policies, but Kevin was a prolific fundraiser. Like you mentioned, Nancy Pelosi was the same way, and the party needs that. Now, I will have to wait and see what he can do, but that is a big. This is where you got to look at a guy like Matt Gaetz and go, Matt, what are you thinking? We've got the best fundraiser in the history of the House, and you're going to knock him out because with no plan. And I'm not dinging Congressman Johnson. I hope he succeeds as a Republican, but the reality is he's really got an uphill climb on fundraising because nobody knows who he is. McCarthy spent decades building a network throughout the country. He was in Chicago all the time raising money, and Johnson doesn't have that. Maybe McCarthy will help him. I hope he does, but that's an issue we're going to have to see because the Democrats know how to raise money.
All right. So Matt Gaetz, of course, the congressman from Florida who started this probably over a personal tete-a-tete.
Well, it's personal, and he's got an open ethics investigation that he thinks that Kevin McCarthy should have quashed. He's a weird dude.
Well, Matt Gaetz, yeah, also talking about some serious potential sexual improprieties. But just to get perspective as to who kind of started this whole tumbling to leading us to where we are now. Pat Brady, we appreciate you all the time. Thanks for coming on the stream. Good day, sir. See you soon.
See you. Happy Halloween.
All right. Thank you. You too.